Okay, so in the last video we replaced the rotors on Maggie here. We checked the hub assemblies, replaced the rotors, and um, I went to take the car for a test drive yesterday. And I recorded about 10 minutes of the drive. My phone actually ended up dying, so I didn't capture the whole drive or getting back to the house. But we came across another issue with the front left brake. So when I pulled it back into the garage here, this front left caliper was just cooking, and I don't know if you can see the color in it, but you can tell. I mean, it was just cooking. Nothing compared to the front right. So I got it up on the jack here, and I already loosened up this tire, but I figured I'd start recording before I start digging into it. And at the end of the last video, when I put this tire on and I spun it, I mean, you could see it spun freely, and now it's just binding up. So we're gonna get this tire back off. We're gonna see what's binding up, if it's the pistons inside the caliper, or if it's just the pads binding up with the rotor. So we'll get this off and see what we can't figure out. So I already broke these lug nuts loose, so we'll just get this tire off. So the first few minutes of the drive were fine. It was about 10 minutes in. The wobble actually started to come back, and I'm assuming that it came from this front left again. It's hard to tell which side it's actually coming from, but yeah, look at the discoloration in that rotor. So let's see. Yeah, see, without the tire, I can't even spin that rotor now. So that caliper is binding up and seizing up. I don't think it's the brake pad. I think it's the pistons in the caliper itself. So let's get this caliper off. So let's get this caliper back off and see if we can't get those pistons freed up. I considered uploading that video, the first 10 minutes of that test drive, but I ended up taking the car at like 4:30, and it was nothing but just sitting in traffic, and it wasn't very eventful. So I decided not to upload it. If you guys want me to upload it, I will, but for now we'll just move on to this other issue here. that one wasn't bound up in the shim. Neither was this one. So neither of the pads were bound up in the shim. Rag. I hope that doesn't fall. I like taking risks. There it is, right next to you. Let's see. I'm going to take the guides off. That doesn't feel too bad. Stick some grease in those. But I don't think that's what's binding up. I believe the issue is going to be right here in the pistons. I think these pistons, you know, they're compressing and they're just not decompressing like they should. So we're going to try to find something. You know, at first glance, I don't see any issue. The boots look good on them. You can tell they're quite decompressed from the new pads. Do have a big old set of channel locks here. I'd hate to grab these with channel locks. What I'm going to do is just wrap the bottom that's going to go against the piston in this rag. See if we can't find a good size here. Yeah, that's good. This way I don't score up that piston or anything. I don't recommend using channel locks to decompress your pistons. But it did decompress. I felt it decompress. Let me decompress this other one. And I'll bring the camera over here. Make sure I'm not on any of the brake lines or anything. Can't tell if that one decompressed. Let's see. Yeah, it sure did. Yep. So you can see that they're both decompressed now. So maybe it was just the guides. Maybe it was just binding up between the pad and the rotor. But yeah, look at that color in there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take some of this brake lubricant here, and we're just going to lubricate these guides, one on each side. So we'll get some lubricant on those guides there and get it back together and see if that fixes the issue. We'll also get some grease in these too. We'll grease these, maybe put a little bit in the actual shim. See, there's one shim on each side. No, I'm not going to put any in the shims, just in the guides. So we're just going to take some of this here and put it inside the guide. So, I don't know if you can see that. So we got some grease in each of the boots. This, slide that back on. Kind of work it back and forth for a second, let that grease work its way down in there. I'm going to put a little bit more on each side. I can still feel it binding up a little bit. So I'll do a little bit more. There's not a lot in this little pat to begin with, so actually, you know what? I'm going to wipe these guides off. Dirt or any buildup on the rails. get our pads back in there. You know what? Let me see. Just gonna knock some of this dirt and stuff off the back of the pads. You know, you really don't want to get any grease or any kind of grease or anything on the rotor or the face of the pad. Ooh. I think I was watching. You see my knife. Some build up in the center of this. Knock this out. Clean this up a little bit. And you can even smell it. You can smell that it was hot. Slide these back in. One side. Oh, you know, maybe I will put a little dab of grease on the little ears of these pads. Not a lot, just a little bit. I'll just use my finger and kind of wipe it on. This one over. Get some grease on that one as well. Like I said, I just put it on the little ears on the ends, very little bit. That way these pads don't bind up in the shims or anything. That one in. And I did the same thing with this one here. I don't know if you can see that, but got grease on each ear. Touch it with my fingers after I just got all that on my all that grease on my fingers. So as you can see, we got each pad in. Some dirt on this. Get this off real quick. So right there's the shim on each side. And that's this pad. So those are the shims. So I put a little bit of grease on those ears there. That way they don't bind up inside the shim. Flip this over. This thing goes on, yeah, see, so those pistons did get compressed or decompressed. bolts on. And bottom bolt. So we'll torque that to 50 pounds. And we'll torque that to 50 pounds. That's it. So, as you can see, it's not bound up anymore. Probably should have bought a can of brake cleaner and sprayed it down. But yeah, see? So that's much better. For those of you that may or may not know, when you're putting these tires back on, you always want to go in a star shaped or a cross pattern. That way one side's not over tightened and you can make sure that wheel gets centered. But as you can see, that's 10 times better. So let's go ahead and get the other side done. I'll bring all my tools over there real quick. Bring this, the knife, the grease. I'm going to go ahead and keep this side up on a jack stand. And again, when we jack up this car, we want to look for this lip right here on the body. So it's kind of hard to see it on this car, but you see this lip right here? This lip and this frame. So that's where you want to jack the car up from. Yeah, see how tight this one is too. Break those lugs loose first. Excuse me. So I didn't put grease on it originally. The pads are still brand new, just about brand new. So I'm sure last time I did it, I greased it. But because the car sat for years, all that grease is probably worn off, or got washed out by the rain and buildup of surface rust and other things. So I don't know why I took those all the way out and trying to break it loose until I got the car off the ground. Let's see if we can set it down easily on that jack stand. Yeah, there we go. I like to keep some of the weight on the jack itself. It's a little bit of peace of mind. So we got that off. Put a couple lug nuts back on here just to hold that rotor so I'm not fighting with it. Yeah, see, this one's sliding in the guides pretty well. It's not too bad. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grease the guides. I'm going to grease the ears on the pads. And hopefully that'll eliminate any. I mean, look how shiny this rotor is compared to the other side. The other side was just discolored. We ran it through a hardening process. Not really. We just cooked it. So, same thing. Just pry this off. So I can set it up here. Get that pad off. Oh yeah, see that one came off much easier. That one still has a good amount of grease on it. So I'm not going to worry about trying to compress this side. This side wasn't the issue, it was the other side, but while the car's in the air, let's just go ahead and do our due diligence and take care of both sides. Prevent me from getting the car up in the air again, which it will be, but hopefully not for the same reason. So, same thing, we're just going to take our grease and pack these. Do this side. So, I don't know if you can see that. So they're packed full of grease now. And we're just going to take a little bit, put it on each of these ears. That was a lot, so I'll probably use this for all 4 ears. Just kind of wipe it in, get rid of the excess. Same thing on this side, just kind of wipe it in. Get rid of the excess. I'm going to go ahead and wipe these off. Try to get off any dirt and debris that might be on them from sitting. Slide this back on. Try to slide it back on. So if you take your boot, you can actually pop them in. It'll make it easier. There you go. Sliding it onto the guide, and then once you get it on the guide, just give it a little tug. Work it back and forth, and it'll pop out and seal up that slide. So we're on. Now they're pulled out. Make sure it moves pretty freely. Drop this pad in. Slide these back into the shims. It's hard to do without touching it with your greasy fingers. You know, I'm sure a tiny bit of grease won't hurt. But you really don't want to get grease on your pads or your rotors. This one's fighting. This one does not want to go back on. There we go. That side's on. Let's do the back. Okay, back one's on. Just try to flip this back on there without dropping the pad. And it popped back out. There we go. This one does not want to go back in. There we go. All right. Tire back on. All right. So now we got both tires spinning freely. This one's not making any noise because I decompressed those cylinders or pistons. Sorry. And this one does. I didn't decompress these, so the pads are still just rubbing on the rotor. But we're gonna end the video there, and we'll get this thing out on the road and see if it helped with that front left. Like I said, it was the front left that was seized up. Look at that, still spinning. So as you can see, I can shake it. There's no play in that hub assembly. Same with this side. Sorry, I'm shaking the damn camera too. But there's no play in that hub assembly either, so